Hi there, this is Dr. Embuddy. Talk to you a little bit about Project 2. Project 2 is an exercise in control, how we're going to use looping, while, for, that type of thing, and conditionals, if, else, that type of thing. And we're doing it in the context of a problem around calculating rental cost. It's a bit contrived. But it gives us a chance to exercise those tools, and I'll show you a little bit about debugging, how to use the Spider debugger at the end. So let's take a look at the project. One way to look at this is to go right down to the test cases, and what you do is there is a little bit of information, starts that you really want to do this. You enter a code, either a B or a D, B, D, or W. So in this case, we entered a D. We're renting the car for 1 day. The odometer starts at that value, ends at that value. And just to make life a little bit interesting, this is in tenths, actually just like a real car odometer is. So this first value is really 10,000 miles and 3/10 of a mile. And the second one is 10,013.5 miles. And so when we do this, we will print out again this code value, and we will print out again the days, and we will print out both of the odometer values, and then calculate how far we traveled, and it was really 13.2 miles to get from 10,000.3 to 10,013.5. And then we calculate on amount due. And so those are there's a series of inputs with a code. Are we going to continue? Code, days, start, end. You do some calculations. So these are simply parroting what was entered here. And then you have 2 lines of calculations, how many miles were driven and how much is due. And then you get asked, okay, do we want to do this again? And we entered the D again. This time we're doing 4 days and traveled a bit further. And so again, the calculation here is we traveled 719 miles and we're due $319. Now, how are the calculations done? It's critical, with a project like this, that you do the calculations by hand and make sure you can agree with this, because that will save you a huge amount of time. If you can't do it with pencil and paper, then you're going to find yourself really screwing this thing up. So let's go back and look at the instructions. And the key part of it is right here. This item number 3. And it talks about how the calculations are done. So there's B for budget or the base. There's a charge for each day, and then a charge of 25 cents for each mile driven. And then the daily one, that was the one we were just looking at, $60 for each day. No charge if the average number of miles driven per day is 100 miles or less. Otherwise, it's 25 cents for each mile driven above the mile per day limit, the 100 mile per day limit. Okay, and so there's a lot of little information there. So you ought to, when we look at that particular example, let's bring it down here. By the way, this is the web page. I'm actually looking at output number 2, and let's see how we might do this with our calculations. Okay, so we want to take the 13.5 and we subtract a 0.3, and and that gives us the 13.2. Okay, that agrees with that. All right, so now we know the miles that have been driven. And we're only driving for 1 day. This is below the 100. We're driving for 1 day, so it's just the 60 miles. All right, that was an easy one. Let's take a look at the second one, which is a little more interesting. So what do we have here? This time we have 4 days, and we have 820 minus 101. And that comes out to be 719. Okay, that agrees with that. Okay, that's pretty easy. Now, how does this amount come? Well, first of all, we have to figure out how many miles per day. Right? Everything is miles driven per day. So let's see, there's 4 days and 719 miles. So I've got 719 miles, and I divide it by 4. And it's 179 point something or other, and that is more than the 100 miles per day, right, limit. Okay, and so we're allowed 100 miles per day. There's 4 days. That's 400 miles. We actually, in fact, traveled 719. So we're allowed that. So now we've got 319 miles in play, and we need to have $60 for each day. So that's 60 times 4. So the base amount there is $240. And now 25 cents for each of these 319 miles. That's $0.25. So that gives us $79.75 plus the $240 that we already have, and hopefully that will come out to be $319.75. So we have the 75, we have the 9, 7 and 4 is 11, and that in fact adds up to $319.75. So you need to do these. If you can't do this calculation by hand like that, you're not going to be able to write the code to do this. So get that calculation done. Do it for the code B. Do it for the code D. There's 2 different possibilities here. That you have the miles driven is 100 miles or less per day, or more than 100, and then the same thing with the weekly. And now you actually have 3 possibilities, right? It's 900 miles or less, but 900 and less than 1500, or more than that. And again, you can find calculations like that in one of these other. So here's some weekly calculations. And there's many of these for you to practice with. You got to do it by pencil and paper, otherwise you just can't even think about writing this code. So let me show you a little bit about the debugger. First of all, let me I'm going to get rid of this header stuff here, so I have a little more room to write some code. And we do give you the strings file. That makes life a little easier for you to get everything correct. And so what I want to do is show you some things. And I'm going to purposely do this. The code that I type here won't be entirely correct. And I'm doing that on purpose. But let's start out. We do need a while loop. And I've taken in some input. And I want to know, does that input equal y? Then I'm going to do some stuff here. And because I've made a while loop here, I want to put my prompt again at the bottom here. And so there's my basic structure of a while loop. We take some input, which goes into a variable. We then check that variable with a Boolean expression, and then we do some stuff in here, and then we take that same prompt and we do it again. That's your basic structure. 3 parts to that, and that's something to keep in mind. So all I'm going to do here, just to start this thing off, is let's just print the particular thing that I have here. And let's, I'm going to have to save my code. And I got to have it with the right name, proj02.py. And when I run this, it says, do you want to continue? All right. So I'm down in the lower right here. If I say yes, as long as I keep saying, typing y's, it keeps going. If I type anything else, that's not a y, it will stop. Right. Okay, so now I've got a basic loop going here. Let's actually do something in here. So let's ask for code. And this isn't the way you're supposed to do it. I'm just doing something simple here. And then let's look at, let's get some miles. You're going to be putting in odometer values. I'm going to skip the calculation for this example. And you're going to be dealing with floats, but for this example, I'm going to make this into an int. So my input string now, I've got an integer for the number of miles, and you have code values of B, D, and W. I'm actually going to check for a code. I'm going to, in this example, I'm going to have an X, again, just to make this different. And in here, let's make the value equal to 50. And if my miles are greater than 900, then what's due is going to add on 900 divided by 10 plus 25 cents a mile. And then I am going to print that value, the amount due. And then we'll go back and prompt again. Now, I do have a syntax error here. And that is because I don't have the double equal there. So thank you, Python, for catching that for me. I'll save this and let's run it. Okay, would you like to continue? If I say no, it won't do anything. That's good. But if I say yes, it will ask me for the code. I'm using a code of X. How many miles? If I do 100 miles, then it says that, it does the calculation that $50 are due, and then it says, do you want to continue? I'm going to say no right here. And what I'd like to do here is show you how the debugger can help you out. So we don't need this line anymore, so let's get rid of that. So what I would like to do is start things on with that code line, and notice what happened here is I double-clicked on this line, and you'll see there's this little red circle over here. This is what's known as a breakpoint. So I have put a breakpoint on line number 6. Now, what in the world does that mean? We're going to do debugging. And our debugging is going to use these blue controls up here. See these guys up here? And in particular, the first one will start things, and this one will execute the next line, and this is the stop button. We'll worry about the others. These middle two here have to do with functions, so we don't have any functions yet, and this one says skip to the end. All right, so let's see what happens here. I'm going to go to this one, the button to start the debugging, and when I press on that, look down here, I've got this Python debugger, PDB, and I still have my prompt, so we'll go yes. And notice this is showing that I am currently at line number 6, which is my breakpoint line. And notice, if you can, that is highlighted. Okay. So so the program, rather than running all the way through, has stopped at the breakpoint. Goes up to the breakpoint, stops. I can now see. So I have these various values. I should have restarted my kernel, because what it has in here are the old values from the last time I used it. So I'm going to stop this now. I'm going to hit the stop button here, and I'm going to restart my kernel. Yes, we want to do that. All right, now we're back to starting again. All right, start my debugging. Would you like to continue? Yes. All right, and now we have stopped here, and we can see over here on the right that I now have my in-string variable. That's this guy right here, and it has a value of y, because that's what I typed in here. So this allows me to keep track of the variables. There's a bunch of other junk in here, and you could get rid of those, but you got to get rid of them individually. Sometimes it works to get rid of them, get rid of them in bulk, and sometimes it doesn't. Let's not worry about that right now. All right, so this instruction, this button here, the second one, goes to the next instruction. So when I click that, we were on we're on line 6, and notice it says line 6 says ask for the code. So let's type in my capital X. All right. And now we've gone to line 7. See how line 7 is highlighted, and then also in the console you can see the arrow has moved to 7. All right, and so we're going to ask for, when I click next, ask for that. We type in 100. Then it takes us to the next line, and notice in our variables up here that that things are starting to get a little more interesting here, because so my in string is y, my code, and notice these, we see the type it says type in that column. And so my code is X, and my mile string is 100. Notice we haven't done line 8 yet. So let's take a look at that. And we go down, and when I do line 8, you see that we pick up this over on the right here. We pick up that not only did we have the mile string, all right, we have the mile string, but now we've picked up the mile int, and notice that one of them is an int and one of them is a string. All right, moving along, I can then go, and because, now notice what happened here is that because my code value was X, I'm now gone into line 10, and when I do the next line, we will see that do has shown up, okay, and now I can go along and do this comparison. Is the mile int greater than 900? No, it's only 100. So we skip line 12, we go down to line 13. The prints don't show up here, but we can see that our do is 50, and now that calculation, that is in fact the value that would be printed. Okay. So there's just a little bit of a look at the debugger. It's really helpful, particularly when you have a bunch of if statements. You can go through and you can see, oh, I thought it was going to go here into this line, but it in fact went into another line. And so it will be very helpful for you to get familiar, get more comfortable with this debugger. It's a little bit of a start at it. As we go along, I will show you more things that you can do with this. Because I still have I'm showing the IDB down here, I do want to hit the stop so that I get back to my normal prompt, and then I can do things like, now if I just run the program, it runs like it always did. All right, hopefully that gives you enough to get started with this. Good luck.